Good morning. On Friday night, when Hurricane Matthew hit Georgia, it was at a stage 2 hurricane. It, throughout the night into this early morning hours, was on our coast as well as inward because of storm surge and high winds. The barrier islands have all experienced record storm surge. My understanding is that the surge has exceeded all previously recorded levels on our barrier islands. There are about 518,000 residents who live in the mandatory evacuation areas along coastal Georgia east of I-95. There are over 1 million people who live in the 6 coastal counties that were evacuated as we recommended. We are working with local governments to make sure that we phase in the recovery efforts so that we can recover and return as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. However, our focus now, as before the hurricane arrived, is on public safety. It'll take time to restore power, to inspect bridges, and to remove the debris and the fallen trees, and to clear and repair our roads. I understand that people are anxious to get back home. And when they woke up this morning and saw the sun shining and the winds subsiding, the great temptation would be to think that everything is safe and we can return to our homes. As you will hear from the agencies that are represented here behind me today, you will find out that that is not the case. We still are in a dangerous situation, and they will elaborate on those dangers in just a minute. So I would say to the people who are in the affected areas, those who have had to evacuate, please be patient a little while longer. We know that is difficult. We know that you're anxious, but we want you to have a safe return because there are consequences in the aftermath of hurricanes such as Matthew, and it is those consequences in the aftermath that we have to be sure we are adequately protecting your safety. So let me at this time turn the microphone here over to the director of our Georgia Emergency Management Agency, Jim Butterworth.
Good morning, and thank you, Governor. I'd like to set some higher level expectations before we get into specifics from our other team members. For the next 24 to 36 hours, I would like to ask that individuals do not expect to return immediately, as there are many unknowns associated with evacuated areas by non-essential personnel is prohibited at this time. It will take time to do inspections and repair damages. Life-saving operations will be the priority. Wait for local authorities to recommend re-entry. Motorists should avoid downed power lines, do not drive through floodwaters, and turn around, don't drown. Of a key priority, 911 is for emergency only. Call your local emergency management agency, and if you need that number, our website is gemhsa.ga.gov. Re-entry of evacuees is dependent on restoration of public safety and medical services. Local officials will determine when a county or parts of that county are relatively safe to access by the general public. Once that time does come, which is in the foreseeable future but not yet, damage to look out for would be power issues, downed trees, road closures, flooded roads, medical access, potable water, medical assistance, and flooded homes. All of these things we have seen up to this point this morning in the coastal portions of Georgia. Sheltering, another key part of our operation today and for the next foreseeable future. As of 9 o'clock this morning, there are 6,570 people in Red Cross shelters alone. If there are individuals who need health assistance, the number to call is 866-PUB-HEALTH. That's 866 782-4584. Our website again is gemhsa.ga.gov. If you would like to volunteer in any form, please feel free to send us an email at volunteer@gemhsa.ga.gov. We would also, and the governor has reiterated to us earlier, that he strongly encourages Georgians to contact the Red Cross at redcross.org or 1-800-RED-CROSS to participate in that effort. Governor?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, going to call on General Gerard to tell you what the 2,000 Georgia National Guardsmen who have been called to active duty are being deployed to do. General Gerard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. As the governor alluded to, last night we activated an additional 1,000 guardsmen to bring the total to 2,000. We're continuing to work with local law enforcement to provide security and presence patrols in areas that have been evacuated. And the additional individuals are now deploying to start looking for debris or assisting DOT with debris removal from roads, making roads passable. We're also prepared to do some search and rescue as well as high water rescue and the need for that. So those are the things that we're contributing to at this time. Thank you.
Obviously, the loss of power is one of the significant deficiencies that has to be remedied, and I'm going to call on Aaron Strickland from Georgia Power to tell us what is going on from their standpoint. Aaron.
Thank you, Governor. We are facing a pretty tough situation out there. The good news is we have had 342,000 outages so far. We are down to 281,000. We have restored 61,000. Now we're in the slow part. Getting to the area, we have about 5,000 workers that will be in the coastal communities in the next couple of days. First thing we're focusing on is the reentry. Thank goodness our good partnership with GEMA and the others behind me. We are in the process of entering the coast right now. First thing we're going to do is we've got to evaluate the situation. We've got a lot of situations out there where wires are down, trees are down, things like that. Hazardous conditions. That's the first thing we're going to focus on. We're going to take care of that. Then after that, we're going to begin our normal switching and restoration. Don't know exactly what we have out there. We're just entering that area, but we have some real good qualified people that are in here helping us, like I said. We are in the process of moving all of these people in, and as you can imagine, there's not many places as far as hotels or anything, and our people are taking care of that, again, through the great cooperation with the state agencies here. But right now, things are going very well. We're moving very efficiently with the cooperation and getting into the area to begin this process. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Aaron. Now I'm going to call on Colonel McDonough to tell you a public safety update.
Thank you, Governor Deal. As of 0700 this morning, troopers and National Guardsmen established a security perimeter at I-95 from the Florida line all the way to the South Carolina line. Why? Well, water, wind, trees, and power lines don't mix. You've heard that consistent message here. There's an old saying, when in doubt, there's no doubt what you will do. Well, your safety is in doubt if you attempt to go east of I-95. And that's why we're there to make sure that that doubt is very clear in your mind. If we have to be the heavy, that is exactly what we will do. We'll be the heavy to tell you to turn around. Listen to the nice request by our governor. Listen to the direction that's been given by Director Butterworth, listening for that 24 or 48-hour time frame. You are safe where you are. Stay there because we've established that perimeter to make sure that only those that get in to correct the issues can do so, to make sure that you have a safe return when you're allowed to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Now I'm going to call on Commissioner McMurray to give you an update on the Department of Transportation's actions in terms of this disaster.
Thank you, Governor Medill. The Department of Transportation began before daylight this morning, mobilizing 500 people into the affected sites. So we have been absolutely in concert with the Department of Defense, National Guard, Georgia Forestry Commission, Department of Natural Resources, beginning to make the roadways passable for emergency vehicles only, and Georgia Power and the Power Crews, as just mentioned. Our goal is to only make it passable for these emergency vehicles so an assessment can be done of the exact conditions of the roadways and the bridges, and again, to restore power and protection to the community. This is not passable for everybody to return home now. Please understand that. Our bridge inspectors have already begun inspecting bridges along the corridors, along I-95, and all the east-west routes out to the coast. This will take some time. We are still in the assessment time to understand exactly how many bridges are inundated. That includes pipes and culverts to make sure roadways are safe, but we are actively underway with that. It will take time. So again, I ask for patience. Remind everybody this is not the time to return home. It is time for us to be able to begin to clear the roadways so that power can be restored and protection of personal property can be satisfied through the other agencies. So again, just please be careful. We'll bring more information forward as we have a better understanding of how many roads will be cleared and the areas that may be safe to enter only at the time that all agencies feel that it is safe to re-enter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Now I'm going to call on Commissioner Mark Williams of our Department of Natural Resources to give you an update on the sheltering that has occurred within our state park system, as well as to tell you what his folks are doing in terms of clearing the roadways. Commissioner?
Thank you, Governor. Currently, DNR employees from all divisions are deployed in a number of capacities, including law enforcement, sheltering, and debris clearing. Law enforcement rangers in the affected area are organized into 8 critical action teams. These rangers are fully equipped with ATVs, river boats, and law enforcement and rescue equipment. Our rangers are actively deployed in the affected area. Our critical action teams began deployment at 7 p.m. yesterday and continuing through these morning hours. State Parks and Wildlife Resources Division have 125 employees divided into 18 debris clearing teams equipped with heavy equipment to aid GDOT with clearing re-entry routes. Our state parks continue to offer emergency sheltering. We are now sheltering 10,500 people in our facilities. Several of our sites are supported by the Red Cross and Salvation Army. Most of our cabins and campsites statewide at this time are at full capacity. So if you intend on staying at one of our emergency shelters, please be prepared to bring appropriate bedding and supplies. And I can't emphasize this enough for our people staying at our parks. Please stay put, as you've heard other people say, until it's time for a safe return. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. You've heard a report now from all of the major agencies that are involved in this recovery process, and I will now open it up for your questions.
Any reports of injuries or an unfortunate death or anything like that at all so far?
So far, we appear to be very fortunate in that regard. I understand there is one possibility of a fatality that is being investigated. But I would emphasize, too, we are about to enter into search and rescue efforts in those areas that were supposed to be evacuated, but in some cases were not totally evacuated. So we can't fully answer that question until all of the search and rescue efforts have been concluded. But it appears that we may very well have escaped this without any fatalities, which would be a great news for all of us.
Is there any additional information about that timeline when people might be expected to be allowed back in these affected areas?
I think it's very difficult to give you an exact timeline, because the reality is that the timeline may very well be different for various areas along the coastal area, because the conditions are different. But we will be giving you an update on those statistics in terms of where roads are open, where power lines have been cleared, but that will be an ongoing process and will not be a one definitive timeline. Yes, sir.
Governor, I know you've been getting updates from your department heads, but have you been able to be in touch personally with anyone there in those affected areas to get any firsthand knowledge of what's going on the ground, or even if they've been able to even get out to some of those areas to even take a look yet?
Well, I visited, of course, as I told you earlier, I visited Savannah before the storm hit. my intention is that I will be going there tomorrow. We want to give adequate time for the emergency crews to come in and give as much clearance as to the safety of these, and we don't want to get in their way. They're doing important work, but we do intend to visit those areas on the coastal region of Georgia tomorrow.
And have you been in contact with President Obama? Do you expect, like Governor Scott, I think, did ask for federal help or some FEMA help? Do you expect that, or don't even know yet if that's going to be the case eventually?
Well, I did speak to President Obama day before yesterday, and he had acknowledged that we had submitted a preliminary request for an emergency declaration. He did issue that later that same evening. I was, quite frankly, late here by a few minutes because I was on hold for the president to come speak to me, but he apparently was tied up on other phone calls, so I anticipate that we're going to reschedule that message with the president. But I will say that we're going to submit a full application for disaster relief because this is a costly undertaking on the part of the state. Just to pay for the 2,000 National Guardsmen cost us about $400,000 a day. So we are definitely going to need federal assistance, and when I have that conversation with the president, I intend to make that point with him.
And to be able to put this in perspective yet of how this, I mean, obviously the area hasn't seen anything like this in your tenure or any recent history, just being able to figure out exactly how big this is going to actually.
Well, we really don't know. I think we are fortunate in that some areas were not as severely impacted as they possibly could have been. Had we had a direct landfall hit, the consequences would have been much more severe than we believe they are now. But I do not, by saying that, want anyone to abandon the caution that is associated with this aftermath. So that is our message for the time being. It will be our message until such time as it is safe for everyone to return. We do not want fatalities to occur during the returning stages of people returning to their homes. The damage from the water surge from the ocean and the heavy rainfall is damage enough. We do not want to add to that. So I would just simply reiterate what all of these individuals from the various agencies have said. I know that you may be anxious to get home, but be cautious, be careful. Don't re-enter an area until you've been given the clearance by either local authorities or our state authorities, and they will be working very closely in conjunction with local law enforcement and local public safety officials in those affected areas. Thank you all for being here this morning.
Thanks, sir.